What's going on, guys? It's Sabby Sabs and I am back with another video. If you are thinking about becoming a first-time home buyer and doing the first-time home buyer program, this video is for you. I got a couple of tips and a couple of suggestions and tell you about me and Babe's experience going through the first-time home buyer program. This is going to be part one. I'm going to go through 4 steps that we did along the way, as well as give you feedback about our experience as well. And then I'm going to do another video and we're going to do a part 2 and we're going to go into closing costs and all of that and finishing up the process. Before I get started, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe below and come back and stick around, man. Listen to what I gotta say about first-time home buying tips. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm gonna tell you what we did going through the first-time home buyer program, the process that we did, and the steps that we took. The first thing that we did, that's right, we attended a first-time home buyer workshop. We actually attended this post-COVID, so the workshop was available virtually, so it's online, and a lot of places are doing this now where you can do these workshops online. It was done via Zoom, and the workshop was put on by a realtor and a loan officer. And I had been through a first-time home buying workshop before, many years ago, before I moved to Massachusetts, and it was not as thorough as the one that I went through this time around that was virtual. So it was a lot of information, but they told us pretty much everything we needed to know. We didn't have a lot of questions. They went over things like the process, closing costs, like, can you afford to do this right now? And what was really important about that workshop is that because this was post-COVID, the real estate market had changed. So now, especially in Massachusetts, there's a high demand, but there's low inventory. And so that really changes the home buying process. And it's tougher even if you're like a first-time home buyer, because sometimes sellers may be a little bit hesitant to sell to first-time home buyers because they think that we're going to change our mind. So that was the first step that we did, was we attended a first-time home buying workshop. They sent us email like documents of all the stuff that they went over. It was very thorough, very good. And I highly recommend that that is the very first step that you take, because you might decide that you're not ready. You may go through this workshop and realize, whoa, not ready for all of that yet. So do the workshop first. The second thing that we did when we decided that we wanted to move forward with this process is that we set up an appointment with the realtor and with the loan officer that hosted the workshop. So we set up appointments with them. When we met with the realtor, we went over what we were like looking for in a property. Sorry, I can't talk today, Lord. What we were looking for in a home, like what we wanted. So if you don't know that, you may not be ready. I highly recommend that you write down what you want in a home. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? Do you want a backyard, a deck, carpet, no carpet, all that stuff? You need to have that stuff ready. You also need to know where you want to live, like what city, what town, all that kind of stuff, because some realtors only work in certain areas or with certain areas. So we met with her, again, virtually, and we went over like everything that we wanted in a home. We went over our musts and we went over things that were conditional, things that we could, compromise on. After we met with the realtor, we set up an appointment and we met with the loan officer who hosted the workshop program. And what he does is basically, number one, he's gonna pull your credit. So if you don't know where your credit score is, you need to find out, because you don't want to be shocked going into that, because every time they pull your credit, something like this for a house, this is considered a hard inquiry. So it's gonna knock your credit a little bit. You're gonna get a dent, so it may go down a couple of points. So you need to know what your credit score is. So we met with him and he went over the credit and he went over like income verification and like what our salaries are, what we would probably get approved for, and what our max budget was as well. Now, this is also very, very, very important. Before you can even start this whole home search process with the first time home buyer program, I mentioned credit. There is a minimum credit that you have to have in order to even qualify for the program. I believe it was 640. Don't quote me on that. I have to go back and check my notes. But I believe it was 640. So if you don't have the minimum credit score that you need, you can't do the program. So that's something you definitely want to check and find out. You have the credit scores that you need, then you can do the program. And you'll need to know what your budget is going to be. So for us, we knew that we didn't want to spend over $550K for a house. That was our max. Now, can you go beyond that? Absolutely. Do you necessarily want to go beyond that? Not necessarily. Just because you're approved for a certain amount, that doesn't mean you have to go up to that amount. We'll get more into that in part 2 when I do the part 2 segment. Don't want to get too deep into that now, but that is something that you need to keep in mind. So he pulls the credit just to see if you're where you need to be. And then when you are ready to move forward, he's going to talk to you about the down payment and everything that you would need. Now, what is a little bit different here in Massachusetts than what I was used to dealing with, I was used to people being able to negotiate closing costs. Well, in Massachusetts, again, high demand, low inventory. So there's not a lot of room for that here, especially right now after COVID. So sellers know that they can get more and more for their house, so they're holding out for the highest offer. So you need to be prepared to have at least $8,000 to $10,000 for closing costs. So when you think about that down payment, you need to include that in it as well. I'll go more into the closing costs and process again in part 2. So we met with the realtor and we met with the loan officer. And so they were in sync and they knew that we were ready to pretty much, start the process. What happens after that? So the realtor will send you house listings. So every other day I was getting email listings and notifications of houses that were in our price range and houses that met the qualifications that we wanted, the things we wanted in a house. This is something I want you to pay very close attention to. When you tell the realtor and the loan officer that your max budget is such and such amount, if they are sending you houses that are over that amount, I would highly suggest that you go with another realtor, because you don't need to be trying to break the bank to get a house. And if there's nothing available in your budget, in your price range, then they just won't send you anything. What was really great about the realtor that we worked with, she never sent us anything that was over our budget. She didn't try to persuade us to get anything over our budget. She kept within like that price range, and she didn't send us houses that didn't meet the characteristics that we wanted in a house. So that was very good too. So I really felt like the people that we worked with were more honest and more upfront and just very personable, and honestly they kept it real with us like throughout the process. So they sent us houses, the realtor would send those, and I'd look at the listings, and some of them have these virtual tours now, so you can do that too now. And so I'd look at that, and we did that for about 2.5 months. Our goal was to buy a house by a certain time, because the closer you get to winter in Massachusetts, the more the inventory will shrink, and it's already shrinking. So we were trying to get something by fall. Once we were ready and we had the down payment, including the closing costs that we needed, we were ready to get pre-approved. Now, I'm not sure if it's the same in all states, but here with the first time home buying program, they will not send you out on open houses until you have been pre-approved. I don't know the whole reasoning for that, but that's just how it is. So next we had to meet with the loan officer again over the phone or virtually and let him know we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and get the pre-approval. So he's gonna do what he does. His magic as a loan officer. And he's gonna pull your credit again. So this is why you gotta make sure your credit is in good shape. And then from that process, he contacted us basically the next day to let us know you are pre-approved and you are pre-approved for this amount. Now, in order to get pre-approved, there are a couple documents that he did ask for that you need to be prepared to send. You may have to send like copies of your W-2s for the past 2 years. You need to send employment verification, and you have to be employed at the same employer for at least a year. I don't know if that's just a first-time home buyer thing, but that was one of the requirements. So it's a good thing neither one of us changed jobs. So that's another thing you might want to think about. If you're looking for a job, you might want to hold off on being a part of the first-time home buyer program. So he'll request documents from you time to time, and they may come back and ask for them again. Because of COVID, multiple times they will check and see the income verification to see if you're still employed, because so many people have been laid off and furloughed. So don't be surprised if they keep asking you for things that they've already asked you for and you've already given them. He had all those documents. He worked his magic, like I said, and then called us the next day and let us know that we were pre-approved. And that is really the biggest step that you have to get to, because you cannot do anything without being pre-approved. He'll tell you the amount that you're pre-approved for, which is great. With us, we had some wiggle room, but that is something they will talk to you about more in detail when they go over the whole loan and all of that fun jazz. So once we were pre-approved, we were able to go to open houses. And this is the fun part. It's like your own version of House Hunters. So we picked out a couple of properties that we were interested in seeing, and we notified our realtor and said, we want to go see these properties. She would let us know when the open houses were, because note here, guys, write this one down. Zillow doesn't always have the correct open house dates. Who would have thought? So she let us know about the open house dates and the times that were available. We would meet her at the houses that we wanted to see. She would be there and she would show us around the houses. Now, what was weird about this process is that even though the realtor is there with you to show you around the house, when you get there, the listing agent is also there. So it's almost like you got two realtors there. But the listing agent is just the person who basically listed the home. I believe I have that correct. They didn't really like show us around. That was our realtor's job. So don't be surprised you get there and there's another person there and they're just standing there and they're like, welcome, come on in, but they don't show you anything. So we went to see a couple of properties. Realtor showed us around. We saw what we liked. We saw what we didn't like. And then after that, the kicker here is that if you really, really like a house and you really, 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 really want it in Massachusetts, you need to put in an offer that day. The houses go so fast here. This is not one of those things where you can drive home and be like, I'll sleep on it. While you're sleeping on it, somebody else may have already put an offer at that time. So when we found the house that we wanted, we put in an offer that same day. We literally got home and contacted our realtor and said, we want to go ahead and make an offer. Now, this is where I'm going to stop. I'm going to go ahead and stop here because from this process on, it gets a little bit more complicated. So that's going to be a separate video. That's part 2. So if you want to know what else happens after you decide you're going to make an offer with the first time home buying program, come back next time for part 2, where I'm going to go over what happens after we made the offer, how to make the offer, how to go through the home inspection, home insurance, closing costs, all the other steps in the process that you may not even know about until you actually start doing this. So come back and see me then. All right, guys, I just want to go over with you one more time what we talked about in part 1 in the first time home buying program, me and Babe's experience. Step 1 is you need to attend a first time home buying workshop. Step 2, we set up an appointment with the realtor and the loan officer that actually hosted the workshop. Step 3, we had to get pre-approved when we were ready to do so and had the deposit that we needed and including closing costs. And then step 4 was actually going out and touring the houses and going to open houses and making an offer. Come back next time, guys, so you can hear about part 2, so I can tell you what else happens after this. But if you have any other questions or if you have comments about your experience going through the first time home buyer program, you know how we do this. Comment below. Let me know. Bye, guys.